and I'm glad to welcome you to the Senior Recruiter course. This is an experienced recruiter, and we have the first session. Today we are figuring out who exactly this Senior Recruiter is and how they differ from a regular recruiter. The course itself consists of 16 sessions, and it has been recently updated. Even today, I added some new research here that we will discuss about what awaits recruiting soon. So, a brief announcement about this course. A senior recruiter is no longer just a handler of selection requests. This is a business partner who doesn't just fill vacancies, but rather solves business challenges and problems through hiring and a bit of consulting. This course is for full-cycle recruiters who are knowledgeable in recruiting, sourcing, and candidate evaluation, meaning they have a lot of these skills. And it's not just a course, but a truly practical program where the homework is aimed at filling specific vacancies, which you have. Why take this kind of course? It's not just about knowledge, it's practice with real vacancies and real candidates, which you carry out there, send to me, and I comment on it, giving feedback. And many students on this course manage to close an actual vacancy. This is the course website. And I'll tell a little about myself, in case we are not acquainted. My name is Mike Pritula, and my first career was as a trainer and recruiter. That is, I recruited employees and trained them, and so I worked for 6 months, until I moved to the head office and became a full-fledged recruiter who only recruits people. I filled many positions. On average, I filled 10 positions a month. I worked at Alpha Bank for about 3 years. 36 months, closed 360 job vacancies. Although there were mass vacancies, about 400 to 500 more likely, closer to that. Then I went to the TV channel STB, and there I headed recruiting. With the team, we were closing about 100 vacancies per month, and this lasted 4.5 years. A lot of vacancies were closed there. At Wargaming, I was an HR business partner. Although I personally closed a couple of positions for that division I worked with, at Preply, I built the entire HR department, including recruiting. And at Ideals, I also built the HR department, including recruiting. So Olga also worked at Alpha Bank. Cool, that means we're colleagues. Back then, when I was working at Alpha Bank bought some bank in Belarus, and I was looking for a chief accountant. This was actually my first experience with an international search. I found them by reaching out to chief accountants of various banks. It was very interesting. Just like that, I think it was in 2006 or 2007 when Alpha Bank entered Belarus. Well, yes, I also advised the company people force on their functions, then launched courses alongside work, and recently created another product, Papa HR. I rely on best practices in my work, and I would be glad if you write about yourself too. Olga wrote, but didn't specify what her current job is. If possible, Olga, please write it. Merger. Okay, so what do you do for work? And everyone who joined, I also invite you to write about yourselves in the chat. What do you do for work? What is your experience? This way, you will learn a bit about each other. So don't be shy, don't hesitate, write. Others will read it. For now, I will talk about the homework. In all courses, we take homework seriously. It is a necessary condition for obtaining a diploma, therefore please complete them. We issue a very serious diploma on the Accredible platform, one of the most popular digital diploma platforms in the world. Google also issues its diplomas there, so your diploma will be solid. The course consists of 16 lessons, some of which are live, some are recorded, but they are all up to date. Let me read what you wrote. Natalia is a leading specialist. Olga has already worked in IT in the recruitment field as well. Okay, so today we are talking about what a senior recruiter is, what is a power webinar. It's this new format of webinars, which we added to different courses. And thanks to these power webinars, we made many courses even more comprehensive. We added more sessions than there were before. On average, we increased by about 30%. The course material volume is up to 50. For example, this course already has 16 classes. There were 10. Today we are talking about the competency model of a senior recruiter, how it differs from the traditional one, a knowledge verification checklist, and we will touch on current trend topics because now the world of recruiting is changing. In general, not only recruiting, but in recruiting too, artificial intelligence and all these technologies have a strong impact. So, Artyom, HR manager, recruiting, 3 years of experience, as Alliance. Okay. So, I call this course Senior Recruiter because it is one of the most popular titles. Although in the world, this role has variations. For example, a variation like talent acquisition partner is becoming more and more popular now, but I wouldn't say that everyone has switched yet. The name talent acquisition partner shows more of a recruiter's partnership role, not just like an experienced recruiter who is there as a consultant. It's similar if you've encountered agency recruiters handling top vacancies, so-called executive search recruiters from executive search companies. This is a recruiter of that level. It could be talent business acquisition partner, senior talent acquisition specialist, or even, well, this is a more exotic title, full stack recruiter. So this is a full cycle recruiter, analogous to a developer. Yes, from full stack developer, a developer who knows front end, back end, DevOps, databases. So they are full stack. Well, it's even more exotic, rarely mentioned. So we don't use this name either. If we're talking about the level of talent acquisition partner, this role is really becoming more popular. I just want to show you the numbers. There are about 37,000 representatives of this position worldwide. Such major companies where these people are found include IBM, Korn Ferry, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Siemens, and Mars. It's useful to understand where global leading companies are headed, how they are developing recruitment, and how they are advancing this specialty. Median salary for a talent acquisition partner, using the example of IBM, which has many of these people, it's $114,000 per year. So it's a well-paid job that is rewarding, overall quite good. But that's in the United States. In other countries, obviously, there will be different salaries. What does career growth look like? We enter recruiting as a recruitment assistant, very basic assistant, sits on calls, meets candidates, performs some simple work. Then we have the recruiter, or maybe a sourcer, if, for example, they only handle sourcing. Then senior recruiter, then a talent acquisition partner, which is on the same level as an HR business partner, then a senior talent acquisition partner, then head of talent acquisition, and vice president of talent acquisition can even be at the level of vice president of HR. In some companies, these roles are separate and are on the same level. This is what career growth looks like. Income. I have already considered income more from our region, Eastern Europe. Income increases as the career grows. A senior recruiter can earn around $1,500 to $2,500 per month. HR, or other talent acquisition partner, is not a very popular role in Eastern Europe yet. I think the time will come. For example, sorcerers were also unpopular for a long time. Now companies have realized this, and there are many sorcerer positions and they are popular. The same will happen with talent acquisition partner becoming popular. Our course is called Senior Recruiter, but it is based on approaches exactly like those needed for a talent acquisition partner. In fact, many skills from this course will allow you to even become head of talent acquisition. The only thing is that there are no management skills here. We just have a separate course for recruiting managers. But the professional skills, business consulting, acquired in this course, they can be a good foundation for a leadership role. How do companies envision the typical responsibilities of this person? Because, sometimes a company calls the position a senior recruiter just to attract people who need this title on LinkedIn in their employment record. The responsibilities are very basic. So as not to get confused, to clearly understand what senior recruiter means, let's look at examples of responsibilities. These are taken from real examples. So what is expected here? Providing strategic leadership in attracting, developing, engaging, and retaining talented employees to achieve business goals, development and implementation of candidate experiences that reflect the employer brand and organization values, collaboration with hiring managers, HR partners, and other stakeholders to understand their needs, expectations, and challenges related to recruitment. Even the first 3 points immediately show that this is more than just a recruiter. A recruiter would not have all of this. It would simply be receiving the recruitment request, posting job vacancies, conducting interviews, organizing interviews with the hiring manager. But here, the responsibilities are much broader. They are about consulting, planning, working with talents. Well, moving on. Developing and implementing candidate sourcing strategies to identify and attract qualified and diverse candidates for current and future positions. Selection and evaluation of candidates using various tools and methods to ensure their suitability for the position in the organization. Managing the end-to-end hiring process from offer to onboarding, ensuring compliance with policies and regulatory requirements, conducting marketing research to study hiring trends and the labor market situation, as well as providing information and recommendations for the organization. A senior recruiter must understand what is happening in their candidate market and be ready to advise the company on what is happening. Here. Next. Preparing reports and analyzing data to assess the effectiveness of the hiring process and strategy, as well as identifying areas needing improvement and the implementation of inclusive hiring practices that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within the organization. This point may not yet be as popular with us as it is in Europe and the rest of the world, but I also think it's a matter of time before it becomes more popular and will need attention, because the world, as we see, is moving towards a time when different nationalities gather in one country and somehow have to coexist with different cultural values, different viewpoints, and so on. And here's another interesting example from IBM. As we have seen, IBM in terms of hiring and the development of the recruiting profession has probably achieved more than other companies. The company IBM is quite well known and successful, and they have as many as 930 talent acquisition partners. So what do they expect from their talent acquisition partners? This is also an example for us to understand what we are aiming for. So they talk about the following: to act as a representative of the IBM brand in services. I think that this is talent acquisition operations for their clients, working both on-site and remotely, interaction with personnel managers, as they call hiring managers, so you understand and don't get confused, and client management, to understand staffing forecasts and transform them into staffing plans at agreed intervals. That is, understanding the long-term staffing needs of their clients, development of deep knowledge about the client's business and industry, regular updates to stakeholders on the status of applications, work condition, recruitment market analysis, and strategy to ensure performance metrics are met, may facilitate organizing a meeting with the recruitment manager and recruiters to discuss expected outcomes, timelines, and candidate search activities. In large companies, a little work for me will continue somewhere. I'll show a diagram. Here is a little bit about the work of senior recruiters or even talent acquisition partners. It's more of a coordination role, meaning they don't necessarily search for candidates themselves, but there is a team of recruiters who do the main work, and there might even be sources, while the senior recruiter coordinates their work. A senior recruiter does not necessarily conduct independent searches, but may work with junior recruiters. For example, a senior recruiter develops a search strategy, and the junior recruiters implement it. Some initial interviews are conducted by junior recruiters, while the interview in front of the hiring manager is conducted by the senior recruiter. In larger structures, in smaller companies, the senior recruiter does everything themselves, both the work of a junior recruiter and a talent sourcer, along with their own work. So that's also the case. Further consult with the recruitment manager on all matters of role requirements as well as on talent offers in the market sector that may affect order fulfillment, and collaborates with the IBM sourcing science team. That is, in large companies like IBM and in Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook, which is now Meta, sourcing is a separate large division that works with recruiting to ensure the successful execution of campaigns and candidate search events. They may provide support to the team responsible for deliveries by presenting a short list of candidates. They analyze platform data to identify ways to improve and optimize performance on delivery and share best practices among the customer team, fulfilling weekly, monthly, and quarterly production and revenue tasks set by the company management, participating in client meetings and presenting services to stakeholders as needed, achieve a high level of customer satisfaction to ensure positive NPS recommendations, and examples from customer service practices. What requirements do companies like IBM have for a senior recruiter? A bachelor's degree in human resource management, business administration, or a related field, at least 3 years of experience in talent acquisition or human resource management. That is, you see, a senior recruiter cannot be a person with only 6 months of experience. That's still not enough for them. Confident building of advanced methods, tools, and recruiting technologies. Deep understanding of business strategy, goals and objectives, excellent analytical and communication skills, and the ability to influence. A high level of professionalism, honesty, and confidentiality. A passion for finding and hiring talented employees. Here is another example of the requirements. Solid experience in recruitment, recruiting, or human resources. Previous experience working with clients. That is, this client part is very important because in recruiting, we learn to work with candidates, but there's always the second side, the clients, the hiring manager. You need to treat them as internal clients, understand their needs, be able to consult, communicate, inform, persuade, and sell. That's what is required from a senior recruiter. Extensive experience in client management with various stakeholders, strong computer skills, and Microsoft Office proficiency, and fluent in English. How the structure might look, we have in principle already considered. Meaning, a senior recruiter can independently close the entire cycle, or coordinate the work of junior recruiters and sources, or just a sourcer. That is, it is assumed that this position could be interactions with other positions competency model. Senior recruiter. What a senior recruiter should know can be easily depicted if you take a hiring process scheme. This is called the talent acquisition system. And in this system, there is actually much that goes beyond classic recruiting. So recruiting is 4 main stages: attraction, search and sourcing, assessment and selection, negotiations and hiring. But there is also employer branding, working with candidate audiences and automation tools. There is customer relationship management. There is planning. There is personnel segmentation, adaptation, candidate relationships, metrics. A senior recruiter should understand how all this works and what it consists of, what processes should be there, what templates should be used. So a senior recruiter is someone who, if there is no recruitment manager, can build the entire recruitment process independently, all its nuances. So this is something you could also call, like in HR, there is a profession called HR generalist. You've probably heard of it. A versatile HR person who is the only one in the company, handles all issues. A senior recruiter, you could say, is a recruiting generalist. and can find it themselves, and manage the employer brand and organize onboarding, because onboarding is closely linked to recruiting, engage in talent acquisition planning and so on, set up some analytics, reporting, metrics. That is why I say a well-developed senior recruiter who has mastered all competencies and knowledge, more than halfway, ready to become a department head. A regular recruiter knows how to simply search for candidates, post job listings, conduct interviews, and a regular recruiter needs a system. They need a leader who will tell them. So I will develop and implement a recruitment request. Here you go. I will implement a scorecard there. We will write job descriptions using this template. Here you go. Let's develop candidate emails together. Yes, we developed it. Okay. Job offer. Here's the job offer template for you. A regular recruiter, not a senior one, will not do all of this. He will either wait or work without all of that, however he can. But a senior recruiter is someone who will not wait for someone to bring him some process or give him ready-made tools. A senior recruiter can implement everything themselves, hence the proximity to becoming a manager. To help senior recruiters, here in the presentation, I am sharing a recruitment system audit checklist. By going through this checklist, you can understand what has been implemented in the company, what has not been implemented, and also understand what you need to know how to implement. Here, it will be available via the link for course participants. How does this role differ from a traditional recruiter? Let's compare once more and clearly solidify it. An ordinary recruiter, which is the majority, every time we see a job opening for a simple recruiter, this is what's expected. That is, an ordinary recruiter just fills the vacancies that come in. They don't ask the question, why do we need this vacancy? Do we need it? Do we need this particular person? Maybe for that task, for that problem, we need a different person or two people, or perhaps they are not needed because this problem should be solved differently. A classic recruiter will not think about this. A senior recruiter will think about how to meet business needs with the best people. In other words, they will look beyond just the recruitment request. A classic recruiter has a short-term focus. They need to fill the vacancy and are not concerned with anything else. What was before the vacancy, who was there, what will happen with the candidate afterward, doesn't interest them. The main thing for them is to make a job offer that will be accepted. A senior recruiter has a long-term focus. They look at what was before. The emergence of a vacancy, how the candidate works and how they present themselves. A classic recruiter has very limited interaction with the hiring manager. Receives an application, sends a resume for review, organizes an interview. Classic recruiters do not always even participate in interviews with managers, but the senior recruiter interacts very closely with the hiring manager. They become such colleagues, partners in closing the vacancy. A classic recruiter works according to the request, not a step to the left or right, while a senior recruiter helps to form the request, helps the hiring manager through questions to realize who is needed, who the ideal candidate is. A classic recruiter's focus is on the number of filled positions. The more positions filled, the prouder they are of themselves. Like, we're great, I'm awesome, I closed a bunch of positions. But a senior recruiter's focus is on effectiveness and retention of hired employees. They might fill one position rather than 10, like traditionally, but they're candidates in the business something. What important is achieved, and it will be a source of pride. That is, what the candidate has achieved, how satisfied they are with the candidate, what managers and colleagues say about this candidate. This is what interests a senior recruiter, not the quantity. A classic recruiter has a more reactive approach. That is, they respond to requests, applications, anything, received resumes. And a senior recruiter demonstrates a more proactive approach. He can, if he sees a great candidate, go to some former client and say, listen, this candidate is so awesome. Think about what position you can hire him for, because he will be a huge value, a huge asset for you. An ordinary recruiter will never say that. A classic recruiter approaches client relationships from the bottom up. That is, clients for him are there. The Celestials, Yes, everything they say must be done, and they feel like performers in relation to clients, like a service. But the blue recruiter feels a more equal approach in relation to clients. That is, they feel equal and act as equals. A classic recruiter doesn't even consider that clients can or need to be developed in some way. They perceive clients as very experienced or authoritative experts. And a senior recruiter helps clients develop in the area of hiring. For example, maybe after the interview with the client, say, listen, I noticed that you are asking chaotic questions and even forgot some competencies. Let's work on developing the questions. Let's talk about how we will evaluate the competencies. I see you need help here. Do not be afraid to say this. Next, for checking the knowledge of a talent acquisition partner, there is a checklist that I developed for this course. It will be available at this link. Essentially, this course aims to cover all this knowledge as much as possible. Now, what are the trends in the field of recruiting? Recently, I don't remember when, Korn Ferry published the Talent Acquisition Trends Report. It will be available at a link. What does this report say? Korn Ferry is a well-known recruiting company. They have already become a consulting company. They bought Hay Group. Now, they are such a huge leader in HR consulting and recruitment. What do they talk about in their report? What are the top 10 trends in the field of recruiting? First, it is, of course, the use of artificial intelligence to automate routine tasks in recruiting. This is a huge advantage for artificial intelligence recruiting. Shift the focus from diplomas to skills and abilities. That is, companies are now looking not only at where you studied and which university diploma you have, but at what you can do. Understanding that candidates also use artificial intelligence to improve their resumes and prepare for interviews. For many recruiters, this is a challenge because the resume can be enhanced by artificial intelligence to match the job description. So what does the candidate do? They tell ChatGPT, here is the job description. Here's my resume. I need to make it so they'll want to invite me for an interview. It rewrites, giving you a resume maximally tailored to your job vacancy. You call the candidate. The recruiter says, here is the job description. Here is the company. What questions will they ask me? Here is my resume. What should I talk about? What should I highlight? And they come to you very prepared. They tell you what you want to hear. They win over other candidates who may have better experience but did not think about preparing for the interview. Strengthening the role of empathy in the process of interacting with candidates. People no longer want to change jobs just for a slightly higher salary. People need to be enticed by new work. Increasing the importance of diversification in hiring processes, meaning you should use different channels. The rise in popularity of hiring employees with informal education, that's interesting too. Flexibility and adaptability are the main criteria for successful candidates. Focus on the development of internal talents and their retraining. Increase in the number of mobile tools for recruitment and assessment. And sustainable development, where the world is heading, is also important in recruitment. What does the LinkedIn study say? In the field of recruiting, LinkedIn also publishes great insights and reports. I took several interesting points from their reports. First, it's about how recruiters use artificial intelligence. 57% of participants use artificial intelligence to accelerate and simplify writing. Job description, automation of tasks to spend time on more meaningful activities. This is the reduction of daily routine tasks, the increase in overall productivity, and the improvement of candidate engagement with the company. It's good if there is artificial intelligence. If artificial intelligence helps recruiters, then what is in demand from recruiters? And here is what LinkedIn's research says. What skills, specifically, of recruiters are most in demand? Are communication skills, meaning the ability to converse, persuade, convey work, company advantages, the ability to build long-term relationships with candidates, the ability to constantly adapt to what is happening, problem-solving skills, and critical thinking. Yes, these soft skills need to be developed in oneself to be a sought-after recruiter. Remote work. Also an interesting study that once it arrived with COVID, remote work came to us for a long time and is not going to disappear or go anywhere. That is, 4 types of vacancies were analyzed. Completely hybrid work, fixed hybrid work with an emphasis on the office, and completely office work, and the impact of this type of work on the job position. Completely negative impact is 50% if only in office, and conversely, almost completely positive impact if it is maximally hybrid work. That is, people appreciate hybrid remote work, flexibility, where there is both an office and remote work, and you can choose and work as you like. Homework for those in the course: fill out the checklist for assessing your knowledge. So I'll show it again. This checklist here, you just need to make marks and write in the form of text in the homework in your personal account in which 3 key areas that you assessed there you personally see the greatest need for development. So the first homework assignment is simple: an introduction for self-awareness of what you can develop in yourself. What's next? Next, we will meet at a live session and discuss receiving a recruitment request and its analysis. Then, the first communication with the hiring manager. In fact, the entire course is built entirely around the recruitment process. So, if you have a vacancy, you can go through this vacancy directly with our course. Send all results of all stages as homework, and also receive comments from me. I will provide feedback within 3 days from submission, except for weekends. I try to check homework every day and not leave it for the next day. Well, sometimes there's a lot sent in, there can be nuances. That's it. So the course, as you can see, consists of 16 steps of recruiting. Well, actually 15, yes, today's is a general lesson. 15 steps of recruiting, 15 lessons, full support. Yes, that's the cost. These are the payment options. In general, come, learn, and become a senior recruiter, top-notch and in demand. That's all, friends. Thank you to everyone who was with me online. See you soon. Bye-bye.